And then I'm going to write. Usually I don't do this. I just tell you what you need to study. But here I'm actually going to tell you what you need to know specifically for each one of these things you need to know. So this first one is, zoom in a bit so we can see a little bit better. Know the method signature for the main method in Java. That one you should pretty much have memorized by now, but it's public. It has to be public or you can't call it. Static because it doesn't require an instance of the object. This actually knows what I'm going to be typing in. Void main, and then in parentheses you say string, and then there's something called an array in there. Args, it's not argos, args, with a pair of parentheses. Typically when you write code, you don't use Arial, you use like Courier. This one actually has a source code thing, and it looks more like programming if you do that. But that's what you need to memorize. Public, static, void, main, string, args. That's the method signature for the main method. Every Java program you're ever going to write always has this somewhere in it, and that's its starting point. For number two, what they're asking is know which data types store integers, whole numbers, and which types store real numbers, like numbers with digits to the right of the decimal point. Well, for integers, the data types are, let's see if I can remember them all. Int is one, long is another. I think that's all we got. And then that's for whole numbers. Oh, I guess there's a few others. Come to think of it, there's a byte. That's really short. It's only 1 byte long. And I think that's all of them. Oh, Mason's here. Another senior showing up. Hey, Mason, welcome. I wasn't sure if any seniors were coming today, but there's a few here today, so it's just really cool. Those are for whole numbers, and then it just depends on the size, right? For a long, that's really big numbers, and int, relatively big, and then bytes you're limited to, I think they're signs, so I think it's -128 to +127. They're not very big. Those are for whole numbers, and then for floating point numbers, there's float, and then there's double, which is twice as big as a float, and that's for real numbers. Okay. So one of the topics in the chapter was data types. And then here, know the values that can be stored in a Boolean variable. So that's the data type that is kind of strange. There's only two things you can store in a Boolean variable. The values can be true or false. That's it. You have only two values. Very strange. And that's called Boolean. It's named after George Boole. He's a mathematician who did a lot of work with Boolean algebra and trying to prove logically statements in English. I think they were English, trying to prove that they using math to say whether they were true or false. So it's actually a very kind of strange branch of mathematics nobody thought would amount to pretty much anything. But then 100 years later, it's used all over the place inside computers that didn't even exist in the 1800s when George Boole came up with these ideas. So you never know. If you're a mathematician, you come up with some obscure mathematics. You never know. Maybe sometime in the future, people will actually find a use for it. So here's another one. 4, know the Java keyword for indicating that a value is constant and cannot be changed. Well, what is that word? And it's final. Final is the keyword or the reserved word for something that's not, or a variable that's not a variable, for a constant that doesn't change. Constants don't change. Hence their name. So number 5, know which symbol in Java is the assignment operator. When you're assigning a value to a variable or assigning the value of one variable to another variable, what's the symbol you use for that? And it's the equal sign. Now, I rarely say that it's the equal sign. I say it's the assignment operator, because an operator does something. It operates. It has some kind of result. And so saying something's equal to something else in math class is pretty passive, but in programming land, it's very active. You're setting this value to be the value of this variable. The variable's on the left side. So number 6, note that Java supports both unary and binary operators. Oh, we haven't really talked about that very well. So what's a unary operator? You could think of a minus sign, not the minus that you use in a math equation, but like you're just trying to make something negative. That's a unary operator. Another one is like not. The exclamation point means not in a Boolean conditional expression. That's unary. The reason why it's called unary is because it only has one operand. You only need one value. Like say, for example, if you want to say negative 5.3, you don't need any other operands. You just need 5.3, and then you make a negative. So it only requires one operand. So that's a unary operator. A binary operator would be like plus, the ones we're used to, minus, division. Remember, multiplication is kind of weird. We use the asterisk symbol for multiplication. There's another one that's kind of strange, and that's the percent sign, which is our modulus operator. That takes two operands as well. For example, your example would be, 5 plus 3. You have two operands, one operator, and you come up with a result. So that's called a binary operator. It's not binary because it does its math in binary. It's binary because it has two operands. All right, so those are our operators. Number 7, know which symbol is used for the modulus operator, the one I just gave away, and that's the percent sign. Remember, modulus is kind of weird. It's kind of like the remainder operator. You take a number, for example, let's say 5 mod 3. What you do is you take 5, you divide it by 3, but instead of saying how many times 3 divides into 5, what you say is the remainder. It's the remainder operator. So if you divide 5 by 3, you get 1 with a remainder of 2, so your answer would be 2. Okay. So that's the modulus operator. You can do some pretty cool things with the mod operator. For example, say if you want to find out if a variable is even, you just say the variable name, and then you say mod 2 equals 0. So if your remainder is 0 when you divide it by 2, well, then it's even, because that's the definition of being even, is it divides evenly by 2. And then if it's odd, you're going to get a value of 1, which means that this equation will come back as being false. And then, because usually you would see this in an if statement. This is a conditional expression. You say if x mod 2 equals 0, and you wouldn't just use one equal sign, you use 2, because that's the comparison operator, or the what do we call it? The equality operator. So if you mod something by 2 and you get a remainder of 0, that means it's an even number. Kind of interesting. So you can use it for stuff like that. And we'll be talking about that tomorrow. We're going to be using the mod operator quite a lot, actually. All right, number 8, know that you must use math.pow to raise a number by an exponent. In some languages, you could say x raised to the 5th, okay? That's what you'd see in C language. For some reason, they didn't do that in Java. This is not valid, okay? This is not valid in Java. If you want to do that equation, you have to say this. You have to use the math class, and then call the static method called pow for power, I guess. And then you put the base as one parameter and the exponent as the other parameter. So you got to do all that typing. In C, you just type that, but in Java, you type all this. So it's not very elegant in Java. They really need an exponentiation operator, but they don't, because there isn't one. So you have to call a method instead. All right, here's some other ones. Know the order of operations for arithmetic operators. Well, sometimes they call it the order of operator precedence, but which ones, if you have an equation like this, say, for example, 5 minus 6 times 4 divided by 7 plus 13 mod 3, say that's your equation, and you have parentheses. So what order do you evaluate this expression, or what order will Java evaluate the expression, which is more important, right? Because that's, you're writing the program. Well, it's going to go through and it's going to do things in this order. First, the first thing it's going to do is the parentheses, right? Parentheses get done first, right? So 13 mod 3, which would be, well, 3 goes into 13 4 times with a remainder of 1. So we get a 1. So we do that first. And then, starting from left to right, it's going to do multiplication and division and modulus. So the next level is multiplication and division, and then the mod operator are all at the same level. So if they're at the same level, it goes from left to right. So the next thing it's going to do is the 6 times 4. And then it's going to take that number and divide it by 7. And so we'll figure that out. So this 24 divided by 7 is, well, this is integer math because we've got no decimal points or zeros. So how many times does 7 go into 24? And the answer is 3. So we have 3 plus 1 so far. And then the last thing it does is minus and plus, addition and subtraction. I'm not so sure about the unary operators where they jump in. I think those are a higher precedence, but just generally, this is the order things are done. And it's usually done from left to right. If things are at the same level, left to right. So what would this turn out to be? Well, let's see. We said this is 1, this is 3. So 5 minus 3 is 2, plus 1 is 3, I guess, is our answer. But you kind of have to know the order in which Java and the Java interpreter is going to take a look at that arithmetic expression to come up with that answer. You just double check that that's correct. Okay, so 13 minus 6, that leaves 1. Okay, it does that first. And then 6 times 4 is next. That's 24 divided by 7. 7 goes in 3 times, so that's 3. So 5 minus 3 is 2, plus 1 is 3. Yeah, I think that's correct. I should put it in a program just to make sure, but I think that's the way it would work. Okay, so let's look at number 10. Know when Java casts a less precise data type to a more precise data type behind the scenes. Well, say you have an integer, int x, and say it's equal to 5. For some reason, I'm using 5 a lot today. And then you have a double, say y, and you set it equal to x. Well, what happens is, since y is a double and x is an int, it's going to promote the x into a double. So it's going to turn the 5 into a 5.0. So behind the scenes, 5 will become 5.0. Okay? It's the same number, right? But it's going to be promoted to be a double, right? And so Java will do that automatically because you're not losing any information. But if you try to do this, if you said x equals, well, let's do something with y just to make y equals y plus 0.4, because it's a double, right? Say you did that, and then you say x equals y. Is the compiler going to let you do that? And the answer is no, because the value of y is, well, is 5.4 at this point. And then when you convert that from a double to an integer, remember x is an integer, it's going to just truncate off the 0.4, so you're losing information. So the compiler does not let you do that because you lose information. You'll get an inaccurate result. Now, sometimes that's what you want. And if you really want that, what you do is you cast it, you force it to be an int by using the casting operator. It's just an open parenthesis, the data type you want, and then the closing. And then the compiler will say, oh, the programmer really wants to lose this information. Okay, we'll let the programmer do that. They must know what they're doing. Okay. So you can't go from a double to an int, but you can go from an int to a double. That's basically what I wanted to say there. All right. Next topic. Know that the string data type is not a primitive data type. You use strings all the time, but it's an object type. It has a class. It's a class. You make objects out of that class using its constructor. So a string is an object. That means it's not a primitive data type. It has a constructor. It has all these methods that go along with it. Int and double, no, those are primitive data types. Some people call them fundamental data types. But in Java, they call them primitives, I guess. So you just need to know that. There's really nothing to talk about there. So number 12, know that instantiation is the process of creating a specific object of a class. So say I wanted to create that string I was talking about. I would say string, and then my name for the string, so I call it my string, equals new, well, string. And then maybe you'd pass in a string that says hello world, let's say, since that gets used a lot. Right. So that's how you instantiate something. So the word instantiate and construct are the same thing. You're making an instance of it. I don't know if you've ever played World of Warcraft. Some people have played that game. But if you play that game, they have these dungeon instances. And the question is, why do they call them dungeon instances? You get your own dungeon instead of going in there and all the other people playing Warcraft are in there in your dungeon. They make a copy of that dungeon for you so that only you and your party are in that dungeon. And they call it a dungeon instance, but most people don't know what the word instance means. And so they go, well, why do they call it that? Well, remember, object and instance mean the exact same thing. So it's their own dungeon object, their own little play area where they can play and not be bothered by everybody else who's wasting their entire lives playing World of Warcraft. Yeah, I spent a summer playing it, and yikes, it sucks up all your time. So you gotta be careful if you start playing that game. It'll get you in a lot of trouble if you got stuff to do, important stuff. All right, so number 13, know how the empty string is represented in Java. There's two ways, actually. There's this. Basically, it's a string, the two quotes with nothing inside them. That's the empty string. But there's also one called this. And we didn't talk about this, but it's called string.empty. It's a property. So that's another way you can specify the empty string. If you really want to show that it's an empty string, it's a string that exists in memory. It's got a spot in memory, but it just doesn't have any characters in it yet. That's called the empty string. All right, number 14, know the purposes of escape sequences or escape characters in Java. We did this, we're doing this in our Mad Libs program. We're using an escape sequence because if we don't put in new lines in our story, then our story is going to be wider than the screen. Every once in a while, we have to put in a new line. So how do we do that? Well, the escape sequence we're using is like, say this is the end of the story, the end, okay, the end. And then you want that to be maybe the end of a paragraph. Maybe there's a postscript to it, and so you put a backslash n, backslash, not a forward slash, and make sure that's inside the string, not outside, and that will automatically put in a new line for you. So that there's a new line character. There's some other ones that you use every once in a while. There's like backslash t, which is weird. That's like a tab. It scoots the text over a little bit if you want. Another one that you might see is a backslash. I think it's backslash b. It makes it ring a bell for some reason. So you get a little ding. Another one, which is really strange, is backslash backslash. Say you actually really want a backslash in your string. A lot of us had this problem when we're doing that cat on our first assignment and we couldn't get the ear to work right. Is because we were trying to put a backslash there, and to the Java, that's the start of an escape sequence. So if you really want to put a backslash there, you have to put another backslash. So you escape out to do a backslash, and then you put another backslash in. So to get one backslash to print out, you have to put in two. So anyway, those are some of the escape sequences you might see. Know the string concatenation operator. What is that? That's just the plus sign, right? What does that do? Well, say if you said, again, hello, and then you want to concatenate that with a person's name, let's say, maybe it's a string variable, you would say that. Okay. Maybe there's a comma there. You say comma. Hello, Dave. I'm sorry, Dave, I can't do that. I don't know if you've ever seen that movie. It's a creepy movie. 2001: A Space Odyssey. Yeah. All right. So that's how you concatenate or paste together two strings, right? There's also a trick you can do. Say if you want to convert a number like our integer x into a string, you can just put in the empty string and add it to the empty string, and it automatically converts it to a string. So that's kind of cheap, but it does work. Anything else you can do with that? I think that's about it. Yeah. So that's the concatenation operator. Well, it's pretty long for a thing that just adds something to the end or together, or paste things together. The word seems to be too long. Number 16, know how to convert a string data type to a double data type. Well, you could say this. You could say there's a couple ways to do it, but you could say double. Use the double wrapper class, and you say parse double, I guess, and then you pass in your double number. So maybe it's 5.7, and that will convert it to a string that reads 5.7, but it's not the value 5.7. It's the letters 5 and a 7. So it's kind of odd that you'd see it that way. You can do the same thing with integers. What if you want to go the other way? Say you want to go from a, so you would say, my string, or you say maybe string, my string equals, okay? And so now my string has the symbols 5, a period, and a 7 in it. But what if you want to go the other way? Say you have a double. So we've been using y, so let's say y. What if you want it to be, you want to take a string, or you want to take a double and convert it to a string. Convert a string data type into a double. That's a double data type into a string. So I've already done that one, okay? I haven't done this one yet. So what if you want to go the other way? We have a string and we want to convert that into a double. Then we would say, I always get these backwards. Say string data type into a double data type. So you say, yeah, I guess that's this first one. You just put, I would have to put quotes around it. Okay. We're trying to convert it to a double though. So we say parse double. Yeah, so this I'm a little confused about. So give me a second. Double y. Yeah, it would be like that. Double y equals, then the capital D double, the wrapper class, dot parse double, and then you pass in the string you want to parse from a string into a double. Now, if you want to go the other way, string dot string my string, let's say, and you have this double y, so you want to go back to where you started, you would say double dot to string, and you'd pass in y, and then you get back to where you started. Okay. That's converting from a string to a double, and then a double to a string. Those are the two ways you can do it. Another way you can do this one, like I said, if you're just trying to be cheesy, you could say my string equals, and then you just put in the empty string and just add on y. So which one would you rather type in to do the same thing? Yeah, I would do this one. But again, it's not as clear as what's going on here. You're taking this double, converting it to a string, and then storing it into the string. So these two are equivalent, these two here. So programmers tend not to like to type that much. So they might do it this way more often than not. All right, number 17 then, know the different types of wrapper classes. So the ones we looked at are int, not all capitalized, but integer. It's actually spelled out, integer. There's double. You know, each of the data types. Maybe there's Boolean. There's long. I guess there's byte. So you just take the data type. The only one that's different is you just take the name of the data type and you capitalize it. But for some reason, integer is an integer is just int. But when you create the wrapper class for it, or when you use the wrapper class for an integer, you actually spell out the entire word integer. So that's the only gotcha there. And that was chapter 4. This is everything we learned in chapter 4. So now you have a good basis for doing well on the test. And so the test is going to be tomorrow. I'll have it open all day. You have all day to take it, but it closes. It's not going to be like one of those assignments where you can turn it in on Sunday. No, this one is actually has to be done tomorrow by the end of the day. So you have the whole day to work on it if you want. Any questions on any of the things we talked about here? All right, so I'll try to get this posted sooner rather than later today. I'm not feeling very well today, so I'm gonna, as soon as school's over, I'm gonna go rest for a while. But as soon as I get done with that, I'll post this video. So if you want to watch it again, say you missed something, you can go ahead and take a look at it again. Apart from that, so that's all I had for Java 1. I'm gonna continue on with Java 2. I don't think we have any Java 2 people here, but there is someone who takes the class asynchronously. So I'm going to make that video as well. So I'm just going to keep going on that. But if you're in Java 1, you're free to take off. And then seniors, if I don't see you again, like I said, have a nice life. Don't forget about Mr. V. If you make millions of dollars later on, say you're like Jeff Bezos and you own some company, throw Mr. V a bone and hire him so he can get a decent job and be able to buy a car or something. Okay. All right. Which assignment is due today? Oh, good question, Alex. Let's see. What assignments are due today? There's nothing due today. You know, I mean, our due dates are always on Sunday. So what do we have? We have graphical Mad Libs that are due on the 13th. So that would be this Sunday. The regular Mad Libs were due last Sunday, but again, you have an extra week to turn that in if you would like. So you have to get that one done. I would get this one done first, the non-graphical ones that uses the scanner. So you get that one done. And then as soon as you get that one done, make a copy of it. Remember, don't change the one you just created, because I get that link, 2 weeks from now, and then I'm going to look at it and it's going to be the other one. So make sure you make a copy of this one before you start working on that one. Just make a copy and then switch out your scanner for a J option pane and switch out your strings for string builders, and then you're set to go. But good question. Any other questions? And then Nick, you're a senior too, so yeah, congratulations, and I'm excited for all my seniors. They're about ready to take the next step, and the world maybe become normal again. So we'll see. All right. Any other questions?